basically just told me to get back to basics, do a little bit of research, get in contact with people who could be potential customers. This lack of motivation, as I mentioned previously, no, you send that email, you call that person, and really just probably should work on that a little bit.
No, I think you're actually doing fine.
Okay, well.
But then enjoy the ride.
And you don't have control over the different components. So if you have different proportions, then that doesn't really suit you at all.
Welcome everyone. Today I'm in our podcast studio with Nina.
Hello.
Hi Nina. Nina Euler Vestey, correct?
Yes.
Student at Global School.
Yes.
What year are you in?
I'm in the first year of the Global School.
Yeah, you just recently started, correct?
Yes, I did.
And I have a video from Scott,
Okay.
one of the business coaches, and he actually has a question for you.
Okay.
Here we go.
Hi Nina, I was wondering how this first week at the GS4E changed your perspective on entrepreneurship.
Okay. So for me, I think the way that it changed, I always saw it as quite an overwhelming thing. I always felt like entrepreneurship was such a sort of far removed thing that from something that I could achieve. I always felt quite distant, I guess. I felt like I wasn't enough to identify with being an entrepreneur, because I feel like entrepreneurs are extremely successful, extremely intelligent, and sometimes I felt like maybe I wasn't far enough in my development to really call myself that. But then being here, it definitely changed that. I definitely feel like I can identify as an entrepreneur now. I know a little bit more about the process of it, and also just the general community that there is within this school of entrepreneurs. And so you don't have to be a certain thing to be an entrepreneur, so it's
cool.
In that sense.
That's
yeah.
I'm super enthusiastic, of course, of your answer to Scott's question, because that's happened within how many weeks are you now here? I think you're in the second module, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like 7-8 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's already happened. So I'm super happy that you're in this podcast, and also looking forward to elaborate a little bit on that. I have a second question, and after that we're going to talk into that. But I know what's coming.
Okay.
It's actually a question from Johanna.
Okay.
And Johanna's your learning coach, right?
Yes.
So we have business coaches and learning coaches. Scott, we had the previous question from, is a business coach. He helps you out with designing your business and
yes. Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit on what your talks with Scott are all about?
So for me, I also struggle a little bit with my motivation, and also just kind of where to start. I'm at the very beginning stages of developing my brand, and so I get overwhelmed by this huge to-do list that could be something that I need to do or address. And so I started getting less motivated, and I didn't really know where to start. And so I went to Scott and I said, look, I'm really struggling. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have ideas, but they just seem so big. So I don't know how to tackle this problem and actually get to work. And so basically he just told me to get back to basics, do a little bit of research, field research, task research, that sort of thing, get in contact with people who could be potential customers, and really analyze if there's interest from the beginning. Yeah. And so that also kind of interlinks with our first module with Agile Working in that sense, with finding interest and
Yeah, the Agile Working modules really amuse almost, the first little bite and taste of the entire program. And then there's Johanna. Johanna is a learning coach. And with Johanna, you have more talks on more personal development angle, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and you will also recognize that in the question.
Okay.
Because this is Johanna's question.
Hi, Nina. I have a question for you. I've picked up on the fact that you have a special bond with your mom. And I'm just curious to find out what about her inspires you. You can think of her character traits, her values, certain skills, the life she has lived, challenges she has overcome. What is it exactly that you admire about her? And how do you want to take that with you as an entrepreneur? Be specific. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so I love that question. I love my mom. So
she picked up correctly.
Yeah. So that's an easy topic for me to discuss because, I really do look at my mom and both my parents for inspiration. They're also entrepreneurs. They sort of established their own businesses in the past, and I can really see that they enjoy it, which is something that also gives me motivation because I hope to enjoy it as much as they have. But specifically my mum, I think the traits that I really admire about her is she's so willing to just put everyone else above herself a little bit. Obviously, there's good and bad things when it comes to that sort of thing, but she's just a very giving person, really wants to make sure that people get the most out of themselves, you know, and so she will really just create an environment where that can happen, where people can flourish. And I definitely think that's also happened with me. She really made sure that I had everything that I needed in order to become, you know, somebody that, I guess, like just the best version of that I can be for now. You know, obviously you're always developing, but she always is there to help me kind of reach the next level. And she's very motivating. She's actually one of the big key parts of why I keep on going with this project. A lot of the times I did find kind of this lack of motivation, as I mentioned previously, and she was there just really like, no, you send that email, you call that person, and really just being there to bring out, the best in me. So
interesting.
Yeah.
And if you look at you're telling a lot of things. Elements that I like to pick out is a lack of motivation. You mentioned it twice now. At the same time, I see you as super ambitious and moving forward, and you've gone further than some of your fellow students during this first period. So you also have this amazing high bar for you to and expectations of yourself to hit, right?
Yeah, I think there is definitely this sort of this expectation that you always have of yourself, and you know you usually are your biggest criticism. Like you're always criticizing yourself way more than others ever would, and so I do think there is that sort of high standard, but also I do sometimes find, like, obviously it's not the worst thing in the world, but when you're analyzing yourself, I could be right, I could be doing more, which is again something that can be a positive.
Are you a perfectionist by nature?
I think I am in certain aspects, for sure. I definitely do want things to be perfect, but also it really depends. No, okay, you know what, I take that back. I think I am a perfectionist. I think I am, because honestly, in a lot of things, I really do try to just make sure that I'm very happy with the end result. It's also why I've been researching for so long, because I haven't found that perfect sort of solution for myself yet. And so I think that is something that maybe
perfectionism is for entrepreneurs, it could be a driving force, and then it's for the better, right? Because then you want to get it right. And I recognize this in entrepreneurs that really set to achieve a certain purpose, and they don't give up, they don't stop until they achieve it. And that drive, that buy-in into getting to the purpose, then it works. But perfection is also very challenging for you to get what you're doing out into the world, because then you keep postponing, and then you don't get the feedback that you're actually needing to further improve.
No, I agree with that statement. So I probably should work on that a little bit.
No, I think you're actually doing fine.
Okay, well.
But then enjoy the ride. I think that's the big challenge. I would like to go to the spark that made you want to become an entrepreneur. You talked about your parents.
Yes.
But what I also would like to focus on is the business that you are now aiming to achieve.
Yeah.
And what the spark was that led you to starting in that direction.
Okay, so for me, it was definitely had a lot to do with my upbringing. I grew up on an island, and so, in Spain. And you are very, like, a lot of the times you're in swimming wear, and you're in a bikini, you're on the beach. It's warm, and I always grew up in that environment. It's honestly my favorite environment in the world. I love the beach. So as I grew older, I would see that these beaches that I grew up loving and everything started to get less and less pretty, or just they were constantly filled with trash. They started degrading in, their quality, in their general, like, diversity. And so I really struggled with that to see, because, again, my mom is such a, we would be in the water and we'd be picking up rubbish and stuff like that, and you would just pick up bags and bags full of plastics. And it was really bothersome, because it almost didn't even feel like it was the locals doing this, because I grew up on Mallorca, and that's quite a touristic island.
Yeah.
And so during the summer, that is like peak season. And so you would get all these people coming and they almost abused the island and then left, and you were left with the consequence of that.
Yeah.
And so that got me into thinking. And I really like style and fashion and that sort of thing. So I was like, okay, how can I really bring together these two concepts of like trying to better something that's been affecting my home, plus trying to incorporate my interests within that project. And then also at my high school, we had a course where basically you started a business that was good for the environment. And I thought, okay, that's the perfect opportunity. I'm going to create basically, island uniform, which is swimwear. And I'm going to try and make it as sustainable, as environmentally friendly as I can.
Okay,
and
cool.
That was sort of the spark behind it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So that research from school in combination with the experience on Mallorca made you combine the two. And that's such okay, cool. And where are you at the moment? Because that's an idea that you make a paper about. And it's actually a similar project or journey that if you look at the ocean cleanup, he also went. His story is also that he went swimming in Greece. Also saw more plastic than fish, and that led him to start a project as well at his high school. That led him to study at TU Delft, and then start the ocean cleanup.
That's Boyan Slot, no?
Yeah, Boyan Slot. Yeah.
So he was also like quite a key figure that kept on being brought up as I was like sort of doing my project. I was because it is, as you say, like started in high school, that sort of thing, and then was able to really make something out of it.
Yeah,
and
super inspirational story. And now you're up. So you're gonna what's your concept? What's the idea?
So the concept is it's a cradle to cradle swimwear brand, and the reason why cradle to cradle and not sustainable is because nowadays on the market, sustainable swimwear isn't actually sustainable, because it is right now. There's a material which is very heavily used, which is called EcoNile, and it is basically regenerated nylon plus plastics from the ocean. So you'll often see these sustainable swimwear which are basically recapturing plastics from the ocean and then making them into swimwear, which is super sustainable. And I fell into that trap as well, because at first this was exactly what I was trying to recreate when I started, and then as I did my research, I realized, oh my god, this is basically like normal clothing, because what they do is with that EcoNile, they incorporate a normal everyday elastane, which basically you're just making clothes. And so all you're doing is you're giving that plastic, which was recaptured, a few more years in its lifespan before it will anyway end up in the exact same environment like any other piece of clothing. And that's also why this research has taken so long, because I don't want to do that. For me, that was something that sort of made me a little bit angry, kind of this whole greenwashing. Yeah. But I don't even think the brands themselves necessarily would know. That's the thing. So
unknowingly be greenwashing instead of purposeful or purposely be greenwashing.
Yeah, because I think I had this idea for 2 years. And in those 2 years, I wasn't able to execute this cradle to cradle certified sort of level. Obviously, certifications are very expensive and stuff, but like at least the integrity of it would still be the same. But I wasn't able to, because it took me so long to figure this out, actually, to really realize that the option isn't actually sustainable as it claims to be. So
cool. That leads me to my next question, actually.
Okay.
It's from Kenneth.
Okay.
Kenneth is one of the first students to start a global school, and he's now also mentoring a lot of students that want to do fashion.
Okay.
You've also met him, and he's talked to you, and he has some questions that are actually partially answered. But I think that if we listen to his question, will be interesting to see. What else you would want to add to your previous answer?
For sure.
Here we go.
Hello, Nina. This is Kenneth right here. I'm super excited about your fashion project. Just looking forward about what you will create. And also, I'm also happy that you're doing this podcast with Thomas Blekman. And I have just 2 questions for you. The first one would be, what is your definition of fashion sustainability? Because when you look around, you have so many brands who are doing, fashion sustainability, and they all have different definitions. So I would just want to know more about your definition. The second would be, what are your user selling points, and how do you differentiate yourself from your competitors?
Okay, so the first question, I definitely think that my definition is honesty. That's why I think, like I've mentioned, it's just been a long process, because I want this transparency, because as a consumer, I would also want to know. This is why I'm very passionate about making this work. And so for me, yeah, I guess honesty is the best policy. And so I think just being honest with your consumer and with yourself about actually if you're sustainable or not, that would be, for me, really important. And also to be sustainable in the first place, but doing it the right way.
Yeah.
So.
And then what is your definition of sustainable? Because that's his question also from Kenneth. Like, what is your, because we talked about a little bit already that there are these yarns that are from captured plastics or retrieved plastics. But you said, but they're adding, what's it called?
The elastane, like a normal
elastane. And then it makes it again. And so you're recycling, but you're bringing it back into the same situation.
Yeah.
What's then your, because you talk about cradle to cradle.
Yes.
What is your definition then of sustainability? How would you describe that?
So I think sustainability now is almost like I honestly don't want to use it, because there's just so many definitions of it. I feel like everyone has their own standard of what sustainability really is. My own definition would definitely have to be that create a product which then, when it's either recycled or reused, it doesn't lose its integrity, its quality, or that it's also skin safe, because you are using, for example, plastics which do contain toxins within them. And so to make sure that that's also a big element for me. So I think, honestly, the definition kind of leads towards the values of cradle to cradle, because that's, I think, the best standard at the moment out there.
So what will you do differently? If you look at your swimwear, how will your swimwear be treated differently, or how will it be produced differently, so that I really understand what the difference is that you're offering, because you need the elastane also for it to be flexible, right?
Yeah.
So to have an understanding of what you have in mind, what do you envision on what it should be? Can you explain?
Yeah. So there is actually an elastane in production which would follow cradle to cradle certification. The issue is, and it's actually already being combined, but the fact that it's going to be exposed to things like chlorine, salt, the sun, that sort of thing. That's not 100% there yet, I don't think. So I feel like it is in production, but it's just sort of starting. So I don't know if it's very suitable for beachwear yet. That's kind of where I'm at right now in the process. I'm trying to get in contact with the producers of EcoNow, the producers of this elastane, and trying to see if I can make it.
Oh, cool.
suitable.
So that could be then a compelling call out for producers who might be looking at this interview.
For sure.
and can you do a call out to producers? What would you need?
Okay, so basically I would need to know whether this elastane and whether this EcoNow work together in chlorine, salt, the sort of usual environment when you are on the beach, in the sea, in a pool, that sort of thing, when you're wearing swimwear. That would be my call out, so please help.
Yeah, cool.
Please get in contact.
Yeah, let's shoot that into the community.
Exactly.
And the Unknown Group has a database of over 2 million startups around the world. We can definitely see if we can find producers that are working with these types of front-running concepts.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let's get back to the second part of Kenneth's question, and that had to do with, if I understand the question correctly, had to do with what's your unique selling point. So unique selling point goes that you break down the product afterwards. Are you good?
Yeah,
how
so
would that work?
Basically one thing is that it would be cradle to cradle, and in that sense that I would then recapture the swimwear and be able to use the initial nutrients that went into it and use it again to create a new swimsuit.
Yeah, so completely decompose your product into
basically the initial
base
materials.
Fibers. Yeah.
And so then I would be able to use it, and the quality and the fact that it's skin safe wouldn't change, so the integrity wouldn't change. But then also I do realize that for the sustainability movement, although it's big and it's here, I do think that not that many people would there is obviously a group of people that would base their purchases on the fact that it's sustainable, but I do think that also I do want to make a product which not only people who are interested in sustainability would buy. You know, I want it to be something that if you're interested in fashion, if you're interested in comfort, that sort of thing, that's where design also has to be up to par with the fact that it's sustainable. So my unique selling point can't only be that it's sustainable, it has to also, you know, be practical, be comfortable, be stylish, be flattering, you know, that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, it's funny that you entered flattering.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask a question about this. That's okay. Also what Arlette is doing with Inside Out Swimwear, right? Yeah. Also a student at Global School, now taking temporary break for modeling, and but she's now with Inside Out Swimwear really active on social media as well. Mm-hmm. And she really focused on a certain group of people that it's also a lot about the looks, and I always have funny when I'm on the couch looking at, I always follow the students and then look at what they're posting, and then I have two sons, one of 11 and one of 13, and they're looking, what are you looking at?
Girls in bikinis.
and then, but then flattering to her models, definitely flattering. But is that also the type of design that you have in mind, or a different type of design?
Like if it's similar in sense of...
similar to Arlette's, or is there a certain design that you're looking for? Is there a style that you think? I hope that.
So I do definitely think that I want to make sure that girls feel confident in what they're wearing. I think that when I wear a swimsuit, I'm now thinking a lot about, okay, you know, is this strap kind of inconvenient? Like, does it hurt here? Like, if it's tight and stuff, like, is it covering enough? Is it covering too much? Like, that sort of thing. How am I feeling in this swimsuit? And so I definitely want to make sure that it's practical in the sense that it works for you, but it also has to work for everyone, you know.
So practical, elegant, comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
Bit in that combination.
Yeah, I do definitely think that elegance is something that I really want to also focus on. It, you know, elegance never goes out of style. I feel like as long as you feel confident and you feel elegant, then it doesn't really matter.
And then also I think that the age is also less of an issue.
Yeah, well, exactly. So elegance can be worn by anyone, if you will, like that. You could say that.
Cool. Looking forward to seeing what design you come
up with.
Yeah, me too.
I'll see what happens.
Exactly. Are you going to like copy your favorite first swimwear and then see how that could lead into what you're producing?
I actually did that. One of the things that I needed to do for my high school course to complete it was to create prototypes, and so I genuinely just did a copy of my favorite swimsuit.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and exactly, and I got it made and stuff. But unfortunately, like there was some issues with the actual seamstressing, like the construction of it. It kind of lost the shape of my favorite swimsuit, so it no longer was.
Oh damn!
So it still looked very nice, but unfortunately, I was just like, not really my favorite. But I do definitely think that I want to come up with something a little. Thing is, swimwear is everywhere, you know, all the designs. There's only actually that's not true. There's a lot that you can do with swimsuits, but there's also like a lot of things to take into consideration, you know, tan lines, you've got to consider like support, you have to consider sizing is something that I'm terrified of because obviously you've got so many like different body shapes and body types and different needs, and so, you know, I can only really cater to my own, but I want to cater to everyone. Yep. And so that's something that I would then need to also do a little bit of research on to make sure that...
That's super interesting. Well, you know that Morris with Collisant is doing tailor-made suits.
Yeah.
Now also going into female tailoring.
Yeah.
But that's super difficult because the differences in shapes and size of female clients it's much more difficult than male.
Yeah.
And so it's quite a challenge to get that right.
No, for sure. There's also, everyone wants something else. You know, there's something that works for me is not going to work for somebody else. And so you have to take into consideration so many different things. Like, I'm sure they have to completely deconstruct the idea of what is necessary for a guy and then what's necessary for a woman. It's completely, as you say, worlds apart, because you've got things that are flattering on a guy won't flatter the shape of a woman, that sort of thing, you know.
Yeah, but also within the female population,
Yeah.
there's so many different types, shapes, and forms. And so do you know? Have you researched with fashion people that are experienced in the fashion industry how they're coping with that? Because everyone that gets into female fashion has that same challenge, right?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't necessarily started the research on that, but I do realize with, for example, the swimwear that I buy, I realize that, for example, their sizing is quite limiting and also not very accurate. So you often, like in the reviews, you see people are like, actually, I would size up or I'd size down, that sort of thing. So I think it's always like a learning experience. And you know,
is it like lingerie that you also have different combinations of?
Yeah, of course. So you might have a different size bottoms than a size like of top. So you have to make sure that you can cater to that, because if some swimsuits brands just do like an S, M, L, like XL and that sort of thing, and you don't have control over the different components. So if you have different proportions, then that doesn't really suit you at all, you know, because you can't cater it to yourself. You can't customize it. So that's something that I'm definitely going to have to take into consideration as well.
Cool.
So
you talked about what you're afraid of, what you're you're in the beginning of your journey, which is super cool to be part of.
Yeah.
And to see you discover, and you went to Austria, right?
Yeah.
What did you do there?
So I actually met with my product manager of a company that is working with cradle to cradle fabrics, and I basically was able to interview him. I had a few questions that I wanted to ask, which was really helpful. And then he offered to take me around their factory, basically, where they create the clothing. And I went through all the different processes, which was super eye-opening.
What was the key insight that you took away from that visit?
So I definitely, honestly, it was probably more personal because I was very nervous. It was my first sort of big in-person meeting. So, you know, I recorded the whole interview because I just knew.
Did he know you were recording?
Yeah, no, I asked him. I made sure there was permission because I just knew immediately as I get into conversation with him, everything's just, I'm going to be so focused on asking the questions and not even think about the answers that I'm receiving. So luckily, as soon as I got home, I was like, people were asking me, how did the interview go? I was like, I really don't know. I've completely forgotten everything.
To listen to my recording.
Exactly, yeah. So I had to re-listen and everything. So that was good.
How did you know that you had to record it? Had you done these types of interviews before where you had that happen to you?
So I mean, like at school I was often interviewing people, but also, you know, again, my mom was just like, make sure that you record it, you know, like
cool tips.
But yeah, exactly. So I do
Mom.
recommend to do that. So that was honestly a bit of a lifesaver, because otherwise you've gone all the way out there and then you've done 45 minutes of chatting and maybe you remember a few key things, but it's not actually what you really needed to know.
Yeah, or you think you heard.
Yeah, well, like I heard things that I obviously I remember certain things of the conversation, but then when I went back through it, almost as if like he had brought something up which was exactly what I needed, and I hadn't even registered during the interview.
Yeah, of course. You capture value that you don't know is relevant yet.
Yeah, exactly. And so I definitely found things. I was like, oh my God, I should have asked him more about this because that was exactly what I needed and stuff. And so you live and you learn. So then afterwards I was able to like email him about the questions that I still had.
Because you didn't burn your ship behind you, right? So you can always go back and ask more questions.
Yeah. So I think that was definitely a takeaway, sort of just also personal development in that sort of sense of, you know,
Did
having
they also
sort of
do
swimwear?
swimwear?
Yes and no. So they basically sold their license to somebody else.
Okay.
But they could potentially in the future.
Okay. And do you see yourself collaborating with them, or?
It's more if they see themselves collaborating with me, to be honest.
Okay,
but,
why? Does it have to do with volume?
Well, yeah, I feel like honestly I would probably learn a lot from them, and I think I would also benefit a lot from collaboration with, but they're currently collaborating with Adidas and like Stella McCartney and stuff like that. So I don't know if I'm one. Well, I could become to that caliber, but
exactly, there we go.
Let's change the mindset.
Yeah, the mindset, right? Because
yeah, for sure.
If you look at yourself like I'm just a student, and we see this a lot, of course, because you are now going for your bachelor's degree, and you are aware that you are in doubt. You don't have the answers. You have to go figure out. But the thing is, what I see is that the student entrepreneurs at a global school that forget all about that and just be the entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly.
You are just, your proposition, regardless of if you are a student entrepreneur or not, is the same.
Yeah.
So they need a lunatic that's willing to change the market.
That's true.
And if you are signing up for that job as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
then they'll probably be interested.
No, for sure.
They might want to do some things that Adidas is not willing to do yet or can't afford to do yet.
Yeah.
Because if they put something on, it's bigger scale, but it might also backfire. So their risk, because of the size, it's much bigger.
Yeah.
So doing smaller experiments with you as a starting entrepreneur
that's true.
might well be very interesting.
Yeah, so I could get in contact.
Yeah, and their win could be, we've proven it with a smaller brand. Maybe you guys would want to do that too. As long as you don't negotiate exclusivity, they're not throwing away any options.
No, that's very true.
So
Potential.
Yeah, potential,
exactly,
definitely. Cool. Because that's my last question to you.
Okay.
And that is, well, you know about Rise, and that Global School is all about Rise.
Yes.
For you as an entrepreneur on a personal level, but also for you as a business. What do you see yourself do the forthcoming year? Let's keep it short term.
Okay, short term.
How will you rise?
Okay, well, I definitely hope to have the answers that I'm currently looking for about the material, and hopefully I'm starting with samples and stuff, you know, going into the design, actually starting with the branding, because I feel like I'm still at the beginning stages, so I need to kind of finish these things off, get the answers that I need in order to really just then dig into the more design oriented aspects, which I'm really excited for, because that's, I think, what I genuinely have most interest in. And so I think that's where I'm kind of going to be headed, having, you know, conversations with people in the industry and potentially a collaboration with somebody in the industry.
Yeah.
So yeah, something like that.
Yeah, cool.
I hope.
Yeah, when you're in the process of an entrepreneur, of creating something new, you always judge your own progress as low speed, slow speed.
Yeah.
But that's because you judge other entrepreneurs who are successful as if that happened overnight. And there's a reason why our bachelor program is a 4-year program, because it allows you to develop your business. That's why we don't offer just a minor of 3 months, but it's a 4-year full-fledged program, allowing you to do the research, create the concepts, go to the market, also validate, get the experience in, optimize, build the business model, get your pricing right. But that takes time, and allow yourself that time as well, because the thing, Rome wasn't built in one day. And I know that for you as an entrepreneur, you're like, oh, here we go again. What's that going to help me? But it's more like that you also enjoy the journey of creation, and creation takes time. And I'm seeing what you are trying to achieve. So if you, because you were like only a year, how do you see yourself then rise in 4 years? So the program's 4 years, you just started. Where will you be by the time you graduate from the bachelor?
Where will I be? Well, I definitely want to be with a fully fledged business, making profit, and hopefully also just, you know, living a good life, enjoying myself here, and I think that's basically it.
Okay. What would you need from Global School in that journey in the forthcoming 4 years that will help you establish your dream?
I think definitely just guidance. I feel like sometimes I get a little bit lost. I'm not 100%. I'm very new to this sort of world of entrepreneurship, so some things I'm not yet familiar with. And so just that sort of guidance, and also just teaching me very simple things like business terms or general like logistical things and stuff like that. That would be very helpful. But also, you know, just sort of like, I've even noticed it in the last few weeks that I've been here, the business coaches and the learning coaches are really there to help you develop. And so using my resources as well that are available to me in order to do so, I definitely think, that would help as well.
Okay. Cool.
So
let's see where your venture and your journey takes you. Thanks for being in this podcast. Really
Thank you
appreciate
for having
it.
me. Yeah.
It was great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, well, cool. This was my talk with Nina, a student entrepreneur with great impact ambitions that I'm super proud of, and that I'm really happy that she has joined the Global School, and with all her effort, even though sometimes you think you're wasting time or that's not going fast enough, but that's the type of student that we love to have in Global School. Students with a vision, with an ambition, and then we're there to facilitate. And of course, you have to do all the walking yourself.
Exactly. Yes.
But we're there to guide you along the way.
Yeah.
Thanks for being in the call.
Thank you.
For in this call. That's so COVID. And thanks for being in this talk. So
thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Thanks, Nina.
Thank you.